And hello, good people, and welcome to the Heaven Earth Church Podcast. My name is Brad Miller, the producer of the podcast. Things we really like to do at Heaven Earth Church is help to get to know the people who are part of the church, why they're here, what they're all about, and tell the story, which is really what this church is all about, telling the story of what connection with Christ is all about, and connection to the church is all about. And our guest today is Heather Harris. Heather, welcome to our conversation here today.
Thank you much. I'm excited to be here.
All right, awesome. Well, Heather, let's just learn a little bit about you. Tell what's hometown for you. Where are you from?
I'm born, bred Indiana girl.
Okay.
I grew up in the northern part of the state, and I went to college in the southern part of the state, and I have lived my adult life in the central Hoosier all the way through.
So you've kind of covered the gamut of the various parts of the state
100%.
in your growing up, and so a part of could tell me one cool story about whatever you consider hometown. What's one cool story about whatever hometown is?
Well, I grew up in a small town in northern Indiana that was just a great place to be a kid. It was just the right size, adjacent to bigger cities where we could have maybe larger medical services. But the little town I lived in, we could, play tag on the street at night, ride our bikes everywhere. I could walk to school. I did walk to school. I could walk to my high school. It was just a safe place to be born and raised.
Safe, good place to grow up, huh?
Sure.
That's fantastic. Well, tell me a little, you're part of here of the Heaven Earth Church, Heaven Earth Church. We're talking about that here in a minute. But tell me just a little bit about whatever faith background you had growing up, if any.
Mm-hmm.
Tell a little bit about your experience that way.
I was raised in an independent Christian church from the time I can remember. So literally, my first memories are of the people and the building and the relationships that were built in a small independent Christian church in my hometown. I went to church camp until I was old enough to be a counselor. And then I was a counselor at that church camp, did the church lock-ins. Youth group was fundamental in my upbringing. So my entire life was church. I know it well. Had to memorize Bible verses and have competitions of knowing the books of the Bible. And there's a lot there because my youth group was so prolific that we were actually roped into being singers, and we would travel and had costumes and sing songs. So church is core to, my life.
That's awesome. So is that continue to be the case in your adult life for the most part?
Well, I think the thing that is just interesting is the shift of what church looks like versus from my childhood to obviously to now. But I didn't know it at the time because when you grow up in a small independent Christian church, I knew we weren't affiliated with larger groups. I knew that we were very different than Catholics or Lutherans and the other 30 churches that were in my hometown. Seriously, there was a church of every kind on every corner. And so I didn't realize that I was growing up in such a strict fundamentalist space. And until I really, left that town to go to college. And then immediately my faith, or probably more specifically my religion, not my faith, was really kind of put to a test because I was introduced just so quickly to people that were from different backgrounds and different religions.
Like in your college experience?
Yes, 100%. I went to a Big Ten college, and it was like suddenly I was meeting all these people who were very different than the people I was raised around, and they weren't the heathens or terrible people that I was told that they would be. And in some ways, and in
give me specific instances you can, like an example of where you met an individual person or a situation that kind of gave you that aha moment like you're talking about here.
Well, it's just it's hard to say because I don't have religious trauma per se, but I was raised very close-minded and didn't know it. You don't know it till you know it.
Okay.
But I just remember freshman year at Indiana University meeting people who were really just, again, people that I was told were not Christ-like based on their religion, and yet they were exhibiting such overt Christian values.
Yes.
And so it really just kind of put everything on a twist. And so it didn't
Just sound
change.
like it almost disoriented you a little bit in a
Sure.
sense.
It just allowed me to start to be like, okay, this is interesting. I'm curious about this. And then, but religion was always part of the peripheral. I was involved, and my husband and I got married and kind of found a church home. And there were just a series of experiences. We moved to China for a short period of time, and religion and faith started to really mean different things to me through these major life experiences. I think what I saw was such a strict, legalistic way of life just really got cracked open as I became an adult. And those are just formative for where I am.
Well, that's awesome. Well, I really want to come back to that in a second, but I do want to touch on a little bit what kind of career. Tell me a little bit about your family, about what career you're involved with now.
So I'm educated to be a teacher. I have a degree, double major in journalism and education, and a minor in English. So I taught high school English, journalism, all the liberal, performative arts, speech, broadcast. I taught those in an area high school. And then I like to say that I retired when my son was born.
Okay.
And I walked away from teaching, but I'm a worker.
Okay.
So I started my own photography company, and I had that for 10 years. And then since I closed the photography company, I have really been given myself permission to see what is of interest to me. And I figured out that I want to work with teens, but I didn't want to teach anymore. And so I started working for a nonprofit and started working with homeless high schoolers.
Okay.
And that has led me to my current job. I am a person who works with homeless youth at an area high school part-time. And it is a very difficult job because of the nature of
Sure.
what my kids, as I say, what my students are dealing with. But it is very life-giving because it is like what I consider to be like the real work of why we're supposed to be here.
I was interested on your card I have from you. It says Hope Navigator.
The title was not picked by me, but yes, like when you have a kid that is facing a crisis of housing,
Okay.
what I consider to be fundamental
Sure. Absolutely.
to
Foundational,
security, right?
Yeah.
They are sometimes overtly or not, they've lost some hope of a security blanket that so many of us take for granted. And so my job is to help them navigate that really hard space. How can we get them safe? How can we get them feeling secure? And how can we get them ultimately, because I'm embedded in a high school, how can I get them to graduation day? Because I know that that's fundamental to their future.
Tell me a
security.
success. Tell me a story where you've had some joy in that job, like an example where somebody's had kind of in a bad circumstance and ended up in a better place.
I mean, I could.
100
of them. When you have a student who is the first generation graduate, I mean, it's 2025.
Right.
And they're the first in their family to graduate high school. That is the celebration.
Wow.
That is amazing. But I've also had the opportunity, because when you live in poverty, there's other parts of life that are not secure. I've taken a 17-year-old to the dentist for the first time.
Yeah.
And that was life-changing because, the migraines that the child was having were related to dental care.
Yeah.
We got rid of the pain in the mouth, and we got rid of the pain in the head, and you have a changed person, right? There's just little things like that where if you can just nudge or help a situation in just what sometimes feels like the most minor way, you can see a trajectory of
I'm sure
greatness.
you've seen some times that break your heart too, right?
100%.
Yeah.
Poverty's hard. There's a lot of things that a child is just not in control of. I don't have a bunch of kids on my caseload that want to be in the situation they're in. They're not choosing this. It's the adults around them have
circumstances that happen, which is really tragic. A little bit about your family.
I have a husband and 2 teen boys, and I mean, I've been married for 21 years. I have just a fantastic life and home with them.
Tell me one cool thing about your husband and one cool thing about your kids.
My husband is a person who um, has figured out, like, as like a hobby later in life, that he has a real talent for woodworking, and it's been really fun because it wasn't something he even did at all when we were dating, to watch someone learn a skill, love a skill, and evolve in a skill.
Yeah.
So it's been really fun to watch. And my boys are just phenomenal. They complete opposites of each other, have um, allowed me to grow as a person. They've changed my life in so many ways that kids get to if you
Like
allow
complete
them.
opposite. Tell me a little bit about that
Oh,
one. Like, tell me what aspect of one personality, aspect of the other person.
well, I have it's kind of funny because they're probably matches of my husband and I, but I have one that is very logical, engineering minded, um, quiet, and processes internally. And I have one who is recklessly shares every emotion and loves without regard.
Yeah.
And again, just two children raised in the same home, but completely different because that is what it is.
But all very cool, right?
Yes.
That's awesome. What got you? What got Heaven Earth Church? What got you some awareness of this church? What came to mind, or what experience got this on your radar?
So through just some different life experiences, I had kind of a faith unraveling in my 40s, right at age 40. Um, and I really felt, as that experience happened, that I might not be able to get back into a church again. And again, it was fundamental to my growing up. It was a big part of my adulthood. I served on church boards and pastoral search committees. I mean, I was very involved, but when I walked away, I was concerned it wasn't going to exist for me again. Um, and that's because I think when you are raised with like a lot of dogma and belief that certain things have to be part of the picture, or it's not the
Yeah.
real picture. Um, I didn't know where I could find a space that would allow someone just to kind of have, again, questions or open ended, um, just allowed to say, I don't know. Or what would it be like if we thought about it this way? I just didn't know that existed. So, a friend of mine who was going here, listening during the pandemic, had said, just, you know, give it a try. And so, my husband and I brought the kids and we came on a Sunday, and it was different because it was the same beautiful stained glass windows I grew up with. It was the same, you know, random mix of all sorts of people sitting shoulder to shoulder in a pew, even though the church was smaller at that time.
Mm-hmm.
But there was just an immediate understanding of openness, and that questions weren't going to be scary, and that not knowing was somehow freeing, or at least being able to say that. And it just really, Josh looked at me and he said, "What do you think?" And I said, "Well, I don't want to throw up." And
Okay.
that was huge because it really, I just really I had really
So
been,
that tells me that in other experiences you'd had, you felt like you were going to throw up, or you had some unpleasant
yeah.
type experiences.
Yeah, there were some just really hard things I think that were going on. I mean, frankly, in our world. But when Josh and I moved to China, um, I for the first time in my life didn't have the minister sharing the word of God with me in the same way that I had before. I had, I took a Bible to China, smuggled in the lining of a suitcase
Hmm.
because I didn't know if they would take it away if they saw it, to be honest. And so I, kind of sat down in China. Here I am, like 39 years old with two kids, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to kind of take myself through some biblical studies on my own.
Yeah.
And for the first time, it wasn't somebody telling me what to think. It was just reading Matthew for the first time on my own. And things started to really break open to me because I started to see faith and things in a different way. And so then when we came home from China, it was right at the edge of what I consider a real shift in American culture, where, the rise of some political ideologies were really in contrast with how I had been raised, but the people who had raised me were were really following that. And it
Yeah.
was really hard and disorienting. And then as it got worse and as it went on, and I saw people I loved being really defensive of just some really specific behaviors that I had been taught were like, these were deal breakers. I was really struggling with how to navigate these
Yeah.
things at the same time.
So
And
you had this kind of this personal journey biblically and so on
Mhm.
in your China experience. Of course, you're a different culture and other things too.
Sure.
It sounded like you were doing your own personal searching journey. And then how did that kind of intersect then with your experience here at Heaven Earth Church? What happened there?
Well, I think the thing that's really interesting is when we were in China, we were attending what they called a foreign fellowship. And it was in, just the most drab lobby of a corporate building. And you were only allowed to attend if you were obviously a foreigner. No Chinese nationals could come. And so what you had was this conglomerate of just people that were in China as missionaries or as expats working for major companies. And you had all these different religions coming to one room and praising God together. And when you start to take away some of the specific, I'm going to say dogma or rites or rituals of a church and kind of just surrender it all to we're here for the glory of God, full stop. And I was obviously worshiping God next to Catholics and Lutherans and Methodists with reckless regard. And what is it? It was a community. That's what sustained it. It wasn't about, do you believe exactly as I believe? Were you raised to believe exactly as I believe? But we were just there. We were a safe space together on those Sunday mornings. I realized that community was an essential part of a church. And of course, it seems so obvious now, but that's what was.
But that had not been your experience prior.
Well, it just was not obvious to me that was such a core part of what we need. And so you can't do that in isolation. And so, later when we came back from China and I started to kind of unravel faith, I felt lost, but I kind of had to start going back to what do I know to be true? And one of the things I knew to be true is that community is an essential component of, I think, a fruitful life. And I do think that if church and religion can teach us anything, that is really key. And so when I came to Heaven Earth Church and had this experience where it was like, okay, I'm not going to be forced to fit into a box. I can have all my questions and I can sit shoulder to shoulder with people again. I really was wanting that community again.
Yeah.
And I wanted my kids to experience that community of just again, having multi-generational friendships and otherwise.
So you mentioned here different types of people you were with. You experienced community of different types of folks when you were in China. And now, you kind of had this dichotomy against some of your other experiences where you had community, but you also had some times of, some confusing things, kind of the rise of some political type stuff is going on in the world. And so you come here and one of the things that is said here about this church is if you feel like you don't fit in church, you fit in here. It's one of the things that's said here. Let me ask you, do you think that's true? And if so, how?
Well, I just think it's about cracking open what does church mean. I think that a lot of us I was raised by wonderful people with wonderful hearts, but it is really easy to try to see things in a black and white way and to have really specific ways that you think people need to live their life or go forth in this space to be a part of God and to be part of Christ. And I think that you can crack that such a bigger picture. I feel like I was raised in the basement of Christianity, and this church kind of allowed me to come up to the main room. And I feel that way a lot. Where it's just no, this is a lot bigger picture and it's actually more wonderful. And when you really start to study the Bible, which I'm trying to just, again, find such love for, is understanding that's really what Christ was trying to get us to understand is it's about love and it's about the bigger understanding and it's not the legalistic space.
I love your analogy of coming from the basement to the main room.
Yeah.
And to me, that kind of says something about, if I'm wrong about how you feel, please let me know. But it seems like the basement is kind of dark and damp, You come up to the room where it's light and engaged.
Mhm.
Anything to that? Anything about you feel like you kind of illuminate a little bit here?
Definitely. I think that when a religion stops with humanity, it's where it
Mm,
really falls apart. And
wow.
I think that God is like the Bible is trying to get us to completely again break that open. And I think Jesus, again, you can study Jesus as what did he say and how did he live his life, or you can study Jesus as like a prescriptive way to live. And we need to, and people just want to honor just him. I don't know. I hope I could be wrong, but I
Oh,
just don't know that Jesus wanted all of us to be like a gang in his name. I don't feel that way. I think he was constantly trying to redirect us to like love,
yeah.
bigger concepts than, you know,
Well, one of the things that's said here in this church is that Jesus spoke as if heaven could start to fill our lives right now. It's here right
yes.
now. So, how have you experienced that here at HeavenEarth Church?
Well, I think it's just that understanding. Again, heaven can be a place that we can talk about and we're living our life for a future place. And I think that if you read the Bible, at least in the way that I have in the past 10 years, I don't read the Bible like that. And
Mm,
heaven is here.
yes.
Heaven is available to everyone on earth. How do we get there? We have to recklessly love one another. And yet Jesus himself knew that that would be so hard and maybe
Yeah.
unattainable. I think it's the struggle he saw. Humanity wants to wreck
Well,
this.
one of the things we say here that Jesus' core teachings are simple and about love, but they're not easy.
Yes, so hard.
So the application is a challenge. And so that also leads me to really like your take on one of the things that's said is one of the missions of the church. It's on a banner that's in the main sanctuary is that we exist to make a lasting impact on our community. So tell me how that mission statement of the church relates to you, or maybe the work that you do, or
Mhm.
your understanding of what church is about.
Yeah.
So tell me about that. You need to unpack that a little bit there.
Well, I just think that when I see people who are healthy, they're people who are pushing things forward, and I really believe that, and it's helped me. Why do I love the job I do? It is emotionally hard to carry around trauma of teenagers, but I believe that my job here is to help people get from one level to another. Can I help? What can I do to raise people up? And so I love a church that gets its hands dirty, that has service oriented,
Various partnerships and community
yes,
groups and service groups and so on.
fundamental. Like, and it's got to be again about not. It's not about my eternal life. It's about bringing that eternal life to everyone here now with just accessibility of like loving one another recklessly. Um, so many churches they say it, but I don't see them doing it.
Hmm,
And so that's what I
interesting.
see here is like a real opportunity to,
You see some application, real application of biblical principles.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, like be in the hands and feet of Jesus. I mean, I was told that from when I was a little kid, but it didn't really internalize until I was a
Yeah.
lot older.
Who'd have thunk it? Who'd have thunk it? Well, let me ask you this. Let's just say, you are a fasting person in so many ways because you're living in your career, family, and life, kind of this intersection is not siloed. You've been very purposeful about intersecting about values in life, and values I think are very important. What the church is all about, but also involves people who have real life issues and problems to deal with. Do you
Mhm.
work with people who have their traumas? And let me ask you this: let's just say that there's somebody in your life that you have some connection with, more like a peer, maybe some friend or a family member or a coworker or someone along this line who's having some challenge in their life,
Mhm.
whatever it is. Maybe there has been a financial issue or loss of a relationship, the breaking up, or health matter, something where they've had some real drama or trauma in their life, and they've come to you because they have developed a sense of trust and rapport with you, and they share some of their life with you.
Mhm.
Would you feel comfortable, or would you feel a part of that in as much as you want to serve them? Would you feel like a part of that serving them could be to invite them to check out Heaven Earth Church and just see if there's something that might be here for them as well?
Yeah, well, yes, absolutely, and I've done it. I think within as I've worked with teens that have become adults, I have encouraged them as appropriate to like, maybe there's a little bit more.
Mhm.
Um, it is hard when we are caught in a space of just trying to meet our basic needs to think beyond ourselves. But I think that it's something that I like to talk to the kids I work with about like, what can they do to give back?
Yeah.
Everyone has got something available to give. And so, yeah, I definitely feel
And,
comfortable bringing.
and just to take it one bit for, how would you describe HeavenEarth Church to that person? How would you describe
Mhm.
it to them?
Well, when we first started coming here, people would be like, "Where are you going?" I'm like, "Well, I'm going to this church where there's like more dogs than humans." Because the sanctuary had these people bringing their
Yeah.
pups, and it was just so relaxed and just so real. Heaven Earth Church is just a real space where you could just show up as you are. I love that it's not like sing this song, stand up now. It's like sing as you're able, sing as your heart is got it available to you. Um, the past couple years in this world have not been easy,
Mm.
and I like the permission that sometimes it's just enough to like make it in the door.
Oh,
Sometimes
yeah.
it's just enough if you don't have it to give, you just can take from each other's strength, and that again, the community piece of that. So
Awesome.
I don't know. I
Well,
really feel at home here.
let me just let you now, I like to sometimes end these conversations with this invitation to you. Let's just say that there's someone who's listening to our voices here today or watching the video, and they're just kind of they're thinking they've had some challenges in their life, and whatever they would be, their family, their job, or something else in their. What kind of things would you want to share with that person about Heaven or Church or about yourself that you might want to share with them that this might be a place for them to at least check out?
Well, I think that when we're in those spaces, the most important thing we can do is walk with other people. And I'm a natural introvert, and this is really awkward to have microphones in my face and to be talking about things like this. But I think that that's the growth point is when you feel like you're at the bottom of the bell jar, allow the people around you to walk with you. And if you have it in you, walk with people around you when they're hurting, because that is such a trajectory for change. I mean, what do I do honestly in my job that helps kids? I make them feel seen and heard. I ask them, "What do you want in life?" And so many of it that I work with have never been asked what they want in life. They're on a ride that is set by someone else. And so I really think that Heaven Earth Church is a place where you could find someone to walk through life with.
Wow, what a well said way to put
Mhm.
that. Well, our guest today here on Heaven Church Podcast has been Heather Harris. And I just want to say, what a great analogy that you have brought here about that bottom of the bell jar and being seen and heard as a place where the opportunity environment exists to rise up or to be just be part of a conversation and appreciate that. So thank you for being our
Mhm.
guest today here on the Heaven Earth Church Podcast. My name is Brad Miller. This indeed is a church which looks to make a lasting impact in our community.